warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching Big Picture with me, Frank Razum Pereira. Since you're here, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the video so that more people get to know about Bharata First. You can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. If you like our content, please contribute to keep it alive. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. Let me also inform you that we have some massive discounts at the Knowledge Center, and we will be closing registrations for the existing packages very soon. This is your last chance to get these offerings. So go to kc.bharatafirst.com and register right now. Don't miss out on this amazing way of learning. All this information, along with some must-see recommendations, are in the description of the video. Please go through it. Now on to the discussion. China's President Xi Jinping has said that reunification with Taiwan must be fulfilled as heightened tensions over the island continue. Xi said unification should be achieved peacefully, but warned that the Chinese people had a glorious tradition of opposing separatism. In response, Taiwan said its future lay in the hands of its people. Taiwan considers itself a sovereign state, while China views it as a breakaway province. Beijing has not ruled out the possible use of force to achieve unification. Xi's intervention comes after China sent a record number of military jets into Taiwan's air defense zone in recent days. Taiwan's defense minister has said that tensions with China are at their worst in 40 years. In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze the China-Taiwan tensions. Joining me on the program today are Major General Dhruv C. Katoch, retired Director, India Foundation, and Professor Srikant Kondapalli, Center for Chinese Studies, JNU. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on this edition of Big Picture. Professor, let me start the program with you first, and let's first try and understand what is the situation like between China and Taiwan. And at least going by the media reports, it seems like it is far worse than what it was a short while back. What has led to this?
Well, Taiwan and China are separated by a waterway, which we call Taiwan Straits, 180 nautical miles on an average. In 1949, the Kuomintang, the then ruling party in China, withdrew to Taiwan as they lost the civil war. And since then, the Chinese were saying that they will liberate Taiwan, while the Taiwanese were saying we will march on the mainland. The Taiwanese have withdrawn the words of march on the mainland in 1986, and they began democratization. In 1994, they had these elections conducted. Of course, the Chinese had coercive diplomatic measures on the Taiwanese by launching the M9 missiles across the Keelung and Kaohsiung areas, that is northeast of Taiwan and southwest of Taiwan. But that did not deter the electorate in voting. So China tried all its tricks in diplomatic, military, economic, or other measures to subjugate Taiwan, partly because of the Taiwan Relations Act of 1979, with the United States Congress suggesting to the president to supply defensive equipment to Taiwan in order to have a balance in the Taiwan Straits. So the United States kind of deters any non-peaceful means of acquiring Taiwan. And that is a bulwark in the Taiwan Straits. In the last 1 year, the Americans have sailed in the Taiwan Straits several times. And this is, of course, also cited as a provocation by the Chinese. Number two, the Chinese had a three-nose policy: no nuclear weapons for Taiwan, no foreign troops presence in Taiwan, and also no official recognition or officials presence from other countries. So in this light, the Americans have been sending higher level officials in the last 1.5 years during the Trump administration, which continued during the Biden administration, especially in relation to health, as Taiwan was also battered by the COVID-19. So this is also seen as a provocation by the Chinese. So in all the internal aspects of China, that is the 19th Communist Party Congress resolution on 6 no's. That is, no country, no organization, no individual, no institution, etc., can support Taiwan independence. So in the 100th anniversary of the Communist Party of China, President Xi Jinping mentioned about breaking heads if anybody supports Taiwan. It's a very extreme comment, probably for nationalism generation in China. But nevertheless, this is all resulted in the current Air Force flights. And in the past 1 year, over 3,000 sorties have been made by the Chinese Air Force. And last 1 week itself, over 150 flights have already reached. The intention probably is to stop the Taiwanese independence. Secondly, to block the Pratas Islands so that the Taiwanese have no access to their island in South China Sea, that is Ituaba. So these are all factors behind China's Air Force exercises.
Thank you, Professor, for taking us through so very well and so lucidly the exact situation there as far as China and Taiwan are concerned. General, let me come to you now. What does this mean for the rest of the world and the region? Because like the professor mentioned as well, the United States takes very keen interest in what happens in that particular region and especially in Taiwan. But if China decides to be a little more adventurous, can we expect outside interference, and how will that be taken by Beijing?
Thank you, Frank. Let me put it this way. If China has to amalgamate Taiwan into its fold, I think the only way it can do so is by force, because there is no one in Taiwan who wants to be a part of China. Once upon a time, of course, they claimed to be a one China. That means Taiwan was claiming the rest of China. But I don't think that is anymore the case. As of today, generally amongst the public of Taiwan, there is not too much concern about Chinese actions. But in the government, there is a great deal of concern. And this input we have got from our people who are staying there. This is from the actual residents of Taiwan. Now, what does it mean? You see, if they have to take it over by force, if China uses force to amalgamate Taiwan, then I think, in my view, the Americans will perforce be required to come to the aid of Taiwan. And should they not do so, and Taiwan falls to China, I'm afraid then the Americans will lose total credibility, and China would have asserted its place as a supreme power, as a counterweight to the United States. But coming down to the practicality of an invasion. Now, the Professor Kondapalli has already mentioned that 180 nautical miles separates the two countries. So obviously, if an invasion has to take place, it has to be either by an aerial paradrop or by sea. Now, I don't think China is in a position really to carry out any of these two activities as of now, to successfully carry out any of these two activities as of now, because the Taiwanese defenses to that extent are reasonably strong. However, I must also mention here that when we are looking at the Taiwanese defense budget, a major portion of their defense budget has been put on the army and a comparatively lesser amount on the Air Force and the Navy. Whereas actually the way the threats will emanate will be opposite, because the threats really will emanate from the sea. It will involve a coastal landing or a paradrop. And in my view, both will have to be done in conjunction with each other if they wish to capture the territory by force. I don't see that happening now for two prime reasons. I don't think Chinese have the capability, the military capability as of now to pull it off. They are still concerned about what the reaction of America will be. Is America bluffing, or will they call the bluff? And when we consider this, I think for the moment, the status quo will continue, but China will continue to pressurize Taiwan with the flights which they are carrying out, in over what the Taiwanese have declared as their air defense identification zone. Frank.
Absolutely. I'll just come back to a follow-up question on this particular issue. You're talking about Chinese capability and capacity. General, I'd like to take that up in detail in maybe in the next round. But let me go across to the professor now. Professor, is this just posturing at the moment as far as China is concerned? And secondly, how much of it is domestic politics being played out internationally? Because you see China doing this and taking on this aggressive stand, not just with Taiwan, but with everyone else.
Indeed, I think there is a lot of nationalism that is generated in China. And the debate began during the 18th Communist Party Congress, where President Xi Jinping mentioned that core interests will not be sacrificed for developmental interests. Developmental in the sense of economic development, investments, trade, and others. So the highest level leadership had pushed the nationalist angle in terms of protecting their core interests. Core interests, Dai Pingkou, the then state councillor, mentioned Taiwan and Tibet are the core interests of China. Of course, he revised that to include South China Sea, and then later in 2009, also Senkaku Islands. So the core interests are dynamic in nature. And as we saw in 2005, they included Arunachal Pradesh as Southern Tibet. And so that also became a core interest for them. So that is how we are facing also problems on the borders with China. So number one, there is a trigger for nationalism within China that was generated by the Communist Party. Number two, they also feel today that since they are a $15 trillion economy, they can push around and see just before the threshold of conflict, they should be able to get something out of this coercive diplomatic strategy. So this is a second attempt that they are making in terms of pushing the envelope further of conflict, but just before the threshold of the actual war. We did see in Galwan, we did see in Taiwan. We also see in Senkaku Islands, there are over 600 transgressions by the Chinese Coast Guard and the Air Force. In South China Sea, of course, we saw the whole militarization in the South China Sea. So in all these theaters, there is the expanding to the envelope of conflict, but just before the threshold of actual conflict, actual use of force. So that is where the Chinese are trying to master. Some mention this as gray zone tactics or others, but that is where the Chinese are currently at that moment.
Absolutely. So building on this particular point, General, and a point that you were making as well a short while ago, you're talking about China's capacity and talking about China's capability. Let's not forget that the Chinese have been doing a lot along the Ladakh sector as well. They have been building infrastructure, building air bases, and even our own air chief has spoken about that. Then there is the forays into the East China Sea, and also South China Sea, as well as trying to bring about some kind of change in Afghanistan as well. So do you believe at the moment China is too spread out and this could be a problem in the future?
Yes, I think, Frank, I think what China has done is there has been an overreach. And this overreach has been across the board. I'm not really certain what their policy is and why they're carrying out this overreach, especially as far as India is concerned, because there was no reason for it really. India was in no way going to take over, its claimed territories in Kashmir. So the question was, why has China done it? I think, in my personal view, it is an overreach. But getting back to that very simple question of capabilities, as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I don't see the Chinese interfering too much in Afghanistan, especially they are not going to open their purse strings to assist that country in its developmental agenda. Perhaps they may like to bribe some of the groups within Afghanistan so that they don't carry out any terrorist activity in Xinjiang. But then that is a very iffy sort of way to deal with the situation, because if you bribe one party, there'll be others also waiting for that sort of cash to come in. So I think in the long term in Afghanistan, I am seeing the Chinese are not going to be the gainers, and neither is Pakistan going to be the gainer. That is as far as Afghanistan is concerned. Coming down to India, I think what the Chinese were trying is they were trying to put psychological pressure on the government of India. Now, earlier it used to work, but with the present government, it is not working. And that is where I think perhaps the Chinese have gone wrong. They've applied these tactics earlier, and some of the times they have got away. But in the last 5 to 6 years, they have not got away. And this is something which is concerning for them as to why is the government of India not buckling the way they would do earlier. Coming down to Taiwan, I think, there are three issues. One is the issue of the physical assault. Now, are they going to actually bomb and put missiles on Taiwan, which they consider as their own territory, and kill hundreds and thousands of people? No, I think no, that doesn't really make sense. Secondly, if they just put in their air force and they try to sort of put their paratroopers in, I think the air defense as far as Taiwan is concerned is pretty strong. They'll shoot down their aircraft. Now, what is happening as of now is they are only going into the ADIZ, the Air Defense Identification Zone. They have not crossed into the airspace as far as Taiwan is concerned. Because if they cross the airspace, I think Taiwan will react. So they have been careful. They have not crossed the airspace, but they have certainly violated the ADIZ. And if they have violated the ADIZ, well, that's just part of the game. They don't accept the ADIZ which Taiwan has given. As far as the Navy is concerned, if they go in for an assault, then I think their ships will be struck. I think their ships will be struck. So I think there is a serious problem as far as China is concerned in taking over Taiwan by force. And it is not going to be easy. But as I mentioned earlier, should they attempt it, and should the West not come to help, then we will find a complete change of balance of power in which the Chinese will gain supremacy. They will have direct access to the Pacific, and American power will be threatened. Frank.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, time to get closing comments now with the best way forward. Starting first with you, Professor. Where do you see this going? What's likely to happen going forward?
The Chinese are exerting a lot of pressure on Taiwan from both externally and internally. The Chinese have sent messages to the Kuomintang leaders who are for reunification. And so there appears to be the civil war, which began in China, is now extended to Taiwan. So this is a gain that the Chinese made in the last 7 decades. They also had the ECFA, Economic Cooperation Framework Agreement, which has not been signed with the student protests, the Sunflower Movement protests in Taipei. But nevertheless, the Chinese have gained much in the strategic sphere within Taiwan Straits. The only thing, of course, is that they are able to deter the Taiwan independence. Although in the last 2 years, there is no movement towards Taiwan independence. So I would assume that this is basically putting pressure on the Taiwanese.
Absolutely. General, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Well, I want to look at it both from the point of view of Taiwan and India. Now, Taiwan, as Professor has very rightly brought out, they also don't want to rock the boat. I think they're quite prepared to accept the status quo as of now, and they will not do anything to provoke the Chinese. The provocation will really be a declaration of independence. At the same time, I don't think the Chinese will be foolish enough to go in for a physical assault, which they perhaps may not win. And even if they do win it, the cost, I think, will be excessive. As far as India is concerned, I think India should now not be that, inhibited in developing its relationship, especially on the economic level with Taiwan. There is a great deal which the two countries can do together. And one of the things I think which we can do is, get the chip manufacturing facility from Taiwan onto India. It is $1 billion deal. And I think it will be beneficial to both countries. The Chinese may be upset, but they won't be upset to that extent that they will go to war. And as far as India is concerned, we've also got our red lines which China continues to cross in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and in Gilgit-Baltistan. And we have accepted it for so long. So I think there has to be a certain measure of quid pro quo between the two countries. We cannot just let them go and say, okay, we will accept Chinese concerns, but China does not accept India's concerns. So I think we are moving towards that side, and it may be good for us to develop a more robust economic structure with Taiwan.
Frank. Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Well, what's coming out of this discussion is that the tensions between China and Taiwan are alarming. A peaceful takeover is out of the question. It can only happen by force. If China asserts itself, the US is most likely to get involved, especially after the Afghan debacle. If Washington doesn't get involved, it will be a big blow to the superpower and will be one step closer to a bipolar world. An invasion is unlikely, and Taiwan is not going to go down without a fight. Beijing has outstretched itself and doesn't have the capacity to go on an all-out offensive. For the moment, all that's happening is just psychological games and nothing more, but the situation can change with the blink of an eye. Now, before I go, once again, let me remind you to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the video as well, so that more people get to know about Bharata First. You can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. If you like our content, please contribute to keep it alive. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. Let me also inform you that we have some massive discounts at the Knowledge Center, and we will be closing registrations for the existing packages soon. And this is your last chance to get these offerings. Go to kc.bharatafirst.com and register now. Don't miss out on this amazing new way of learning. All this information, along with some must-see recommendations, are in the description of the video. Please go through it. That's it from me. See you again next time.